All right, you're unmuted.
Thank you.
There you go. Thanks. You're welcome. Teamwork.
Great.
I didn't. I'm good.
I'd like to call this meeting to order to Benzie County Board of Commissioners. Today is August 22nd, 2023. Roll call, please.
Cunningham,
Here.
Janat is excused. Markey,
Here.
Nye. Here. Rolla,
Here.
Bauer,
Present.
Worsacki.
Here. Please stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity to serve the citizens of Benzie County. Ask for your guidance with the decisions we'll make today. Please help keep all of our public safety personnel safe and free from harm. In the name of your son, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. I'd look for approval of the agenda if there are no changes. Evan.
Numbers.
F.
I like to pull F and maybe have more discussion at our next study session on F. So I'd like to pull F from the agenda.
Thank you. Any other changes? I'd look for a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Motion and support. Any further discussion? Clerk, roll call.
Markey,
Yeah.
Nye,
Yes.
Rolla,
There.
Bauer,
Yes.
Yes.
Worsacki,
Yes.
Cunningham.
Yes.
Have the minutes from August 8th.
Nye moves to approve the minutes of August 8th. Second.
Can I ask a question? If there's no changes to the minutes, can they just be approved as presented versus going through this procedure? I'm just asking.
Yes.
That's something we should consider in the future. Normally, there's a change here and there, but
Right.
quite often it's if there's no chair can just approve them as presented.
No, you still have to have a motion to approve the minutes by the board. So we could create like a consent calendar, like what we used to go to, and you could adopt a consent calendar, which would by default adopt the minutes. We could go that route. Otherwise, the board should approve the minutes.
Just a thought. I've seen other places do it. So,
Right.
okay, thank you.
Do you have a motion and support to approve the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? So moved. Brings us to our first public comment. Is there anybody that'd like to speak? Mr. Delzio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, everybody. Jim Dulzo, D-U-L-Z-O, 556 Case Road. I was here last time when you were talking about the property assessed clean energy. And after I watched the discussion, I thought I wanted to make a few more comments next time I could. And that is, I thought we got a little sidetracked talking about solar energy and wind power and things like that. Really what PACE does is helps property owners, commercial property owners improve their buildings. That's really what I don't have an exact number, but I'm sure 80-90% of the money that goes out, that's really what it's for. So if you think about, some of the processing factories or plants we have around here, or some of the big shopping centers, or even some of the big housing projects we have, like over on Crystal Lake, the condos over there, those are all businesses that could really benefit very, very directly and very, very quickly from a PACE program. They are always designed to be cash flow positive. So there's not a point in the whole program for a business where it's got to put out a bunch of money. It doesn't have to do that. The loaners do that. And the other question that I thought was very interesting, and I don't know if we answered it last time around, was, well, who gets ahead on this, and how does this actually work? Where does the money come from? How do you pay this money back? The thing to understand is the power of energy efficiency. What most of these programs do is make a building in better shape and way, way, way more efficient. And the most inexpensive energy there is in the world is the energy that you do not use. And that's where the money comes from. The people, the businesses save this money, and that saving goes back to pay off the loan. So it's very, very hard to find anybody in here who might be a loser, except possibly the utility companies, because they might be selling a little electricity. But if you talk to them, they're saying they're scrambling really, really hard right now with all the other things that are coming online that are consuming energy, from Bitcoins to electric cars, actually. They are scrambling really hard. So they have their hands full in terms of their market. So there really is not any loser in any of this. So I just wanted to reiterate that a little bit, that really you'll be helping a lot of businesses around Benzie County become more profitable, perhaps hire more people, certainly expand their business, become more stable. And you all will see your tax base value go up, because the buildings will be worth more when the work is done on them. So I just wanted to say all of that and say thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
There any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. At this time, we're going to move into a public hearing. And this is to hear any comments that you might have on the county's 23-24 fiscal year budget. Seeing no action, I'll close the public hearing.
Quickly, my name is Josh Schultz. I'm the executive director of Grow Benzie. You might know us for the farm that we have over in Benzonia, but in the last 15 years, we've grown to become a community development organization. We are reformalizing as a rural prosperity incubator, and the future looks very good for not only our organization, but the organizations we represent. As a rural prosperity incubator, we are the backbone organization, helping with early child care, helping with youth mental health, substance misuse. We help with the education network. We're the backbone organization for the human collaborative body. Several organizations in this county rely on our backbone services. We're now to the point of growing. I don't have a formal ask today, besides that letter of commitment, but I do want to be on your radar for the fact that over the next 5 years, we're going to be growing into a pretty pivotal organization that we want to work alongside the county government, as well as the Economic Development Committee. So no direct ask, but I hope we stay on your radar, because even the Kinship Coalition is looking for money from the opioid settlement. We just don't have a formal ask today.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks.
I have a question.
Normal public input. We don't have questions, but what's your question?
My question is if he could just give us maybe an example or two about what are the things that you do administratively for the group that you're
Real simple,
representing?
the early childhood group. We convene multiple organizations that are connected to early childhood. So rather than starting a program, we write grants.
Okay.
We support those initiatives. And right now what we're doing is elevating our communications, our development, and then how we communicate. So it'd be very easy for us to show up to you, to show a dashboard, to show where we've made progress for, say, childcare slots in the community, what's available, what developers are looking to use this community for early childhood. So we're that organization. If
Okay,
you're gonna look to start a new nonprofit, you're gonna need an executive director, fund development communications. We're alleviating that across the board by being that backbone organization.
okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to understand, the backbone.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Any other public input? We'll close public input. And move on to finance.
Hearing, right?
Hmm?
Use of public input, public hearing. I don't know if you can do a separate
Right.
thing for that.
Close the public hearing.
Yes.
I'm looking for approval of the bills from August 8th through August 22 in the amount of 270. Oh, that's not the right amount.
602,
Please.
88 and $88.76.
Yes, thank you.
So moved.
Marco support.
Motion and support. Roll call, please.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes,
The only thing I have
Jeanette's
left
absent.
is
Jeanette.
the treasurer's foreclosure land sale is this Friday
Hmm.
from 10 to 7 PM online. There are 5 offerings. Other than that, still working on land bank round 3 of grants. So
Good. Appreciate it.
Just one quick question.
Sure.
How are we coming over an honor on that project? Is that getting started?
Are you
I
talking
haven't
about,
heard.
are you talking about?
The gas station
It's starting, yeah,
is starting finally.
that would be a BRA question.
would be a me question.
Oh, Just thought you'd know.
I,
Okay, thank you.
I'll add it to my updates. How about that?
It has it passed through the health department?
Yep, it has all the permits now. So we're having a meeting here very soon. So what Commissioner Sauer is asking about is the project that is in honor that received a BRA grant for a convenience store and gas station. So the permitting has been put in line. So we're having a meeting here very soon with the developers, the county, to talk about kind of the process from here on out, because we are delayed a little bit. But things are getting started. They are starting to dig in the ground and put those tanks down in the ground. So it is moving along, just a bit delayed.
The land bank was initially involved because we are the ones that owned it first after the foreclosure. And then we did the demolition.
Thank you. Elected official department head. Good morning.
Good morning, Saber Boyle from Benzie Senior Resources. First of all, I want to say that Douglas had total hip replacement surgery last week and he's doing well. Not as good as he'd like to be, but he'd like to already be working. So all is well there. And then we have with the generous help of our board members to fill in when Doug's absent as needed. So with that being said, I think you have the packet if you have any questions.
Questions for Saber?
The packet is always very thorough.
Thank
It
you
is.
very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Saber.
Thank you.
Chip.
Morning. Joseph Chip Johnston, for those of you who don't know me, Central Wellness Director, 16 years. Find myself fourth senior in the state now, and they're going quick. So, just here to update you real quickly. I passed around this morning, sort of the our year in review of 2022. I will say to you that we have never seen so many people in my 31 plus years at Central Wellness. A lot of that success, I would say, comes to our opening of an opioid health home and behavioral health home, which are services we didn't have prior. It's exposed us to a segment of the community that we typically weren't involved with. That's the substance use community. So in general, our budget is about 20 million now. 8+ million comes to Benzie County. We employ about 110 direct employees, another 99 contract employees in our residential homes. That's 24 hours, 24/7. And if you look on here, that's a biggest chunk of our budget is for the IDD. And so one thing we recently had come through is our national accrediting body. And they said to us that we were the only, and this is a group travels the country, we're the only behavioral health organization that group had seen, and they're quite seasoned, that actually expanded services during COVID. So that was quite a nice badge of honor, if you will. And so you have the information in here. I am actively working now with trying to make sure that there's a nice continuum with and trying to get with Katie the services on a flow for the opioid settlement money. I'm working with sheriff's departments in both counties and the judiciary to try to see from first contact to treatment if we can have a seamless approach to an individual coming into our auspices, any one of us. So I'm sort of working through that. I have messages into the judges here. And I've already spoke with the sheriff's department about that to see what they need. We would be the kind of the tail end of that through our opioid health home. Catholic, I'm also talking to as well, because they provide the services in the jail. And so I guess the bottom line there is we all are very communicating very well and working towards maximizing the public dollars and, more importantly, the impact to the person so they're not lost once they come into the system. That's our biggest concern. Is making sure that once they're ready, we grab onto them and get to them and help them. One of the exciting things is we are now launching the agreement between us and the sheriff's department for a behavioral health officer. Yesterday, Ferris State University had a meeting with us and the sheriff's department, under Sheriff Luber's back there, and to set up sort of an overview of how we're doing. I told basically Ferris State, watch us like we're ants and analyze what we're doing. Because we are the only CMH in the state, and I think nationally, because I just came back from Austin, doing something like this. The initiatives right now from the state of Michigan are they want us to send social workers out into the in crisis calls in the wee hours of the night unprotected. I refuse to do that. I have personal experience with doing night crisis calls in the middle of the woods with no cell. And so, and both of our sheriffs in Manistee and Benzie agree with this approach. So we're starting here in Benzie, and I'm hoping to take it to Manistee. We also received a Michigan Health Endowment grant to pay for half of the program. So that'll keep it going even longer. And that's a 2-year grant. So lots of exciting things, thinking outside the box, trying to get stuff done, and focus on the core mission of what we do. It's a lot of balls in the air for a small organization, but we're up to the task. So any questions?
Gary?
Speaking of that officer, is there a chance he could come speak with our board? You hear?
I'll churn it over.
Okay. I didn't know, but I'd kind of like to have an idea. So
Good morning, Greg Hubers, Under Sheriff. That certainly can happen. We are really in the beginning stages. The meeting yesterday with Ferris State was really good for both Centra and for us. We defined our goals and how we're going to get to those goals. I haven't even had a chance to meet with Deputy McClatchy yet to explain what we developed yesterday. So I would expect that in the next couple of months, I will bring him down here and you can meet him and ask him his questions and see how it's going from his point of view, if that's fair enough, sir.
just throwing it out there, but I'd appreciate it because it's a program that I think needs to be put out there a little more than you know, I guess I need to fully understand what he's doing and where we're going from here, so.
And I agree totally. I think the meeting yesterday, between the both of us and the fair state representative was very productive. We know where we're heading now and what we expect of Deputy McClatchy. We defined our goals mostly in a diversion aspect, both diversion from jail for patients and diversion from the ER for patients. That's going to be our big goals for the year. And now there's some sub goals underneath that, but those are really our two big goals for the year. These people don't belong in jail if there's not an underlying crime. And we're packing the ERs when we now have some other things we can try before we pack the ER in the hospitals. That's where we're at right now.
Sounds good.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of the other things I wanted to mention too, one of the main reasons, in addition to getting us on the same page with Ferris is, there is virtually no research on approaches to these problems for behavioral health problems in rural communities. Over 10 years, there were 780 some studies, less than 20. I think it was like 10 to 15 were in rural settings. So I think this is a great approach, and I look forward to continued work together. One of the things I'll mention before I go that's really causing the state problems and a lot of CMH's problems is you'll hear about children sitting in ERs for long periods of time. And the reason for that is, and I will squarely blame the state of Michigan, they, at one point when I started my career, had 450 beds for children and 6 service sites from Traverse City all the way down to state line, serving the entire state, down to 20 beds now. And so what's happening is the private psychiatric hospitals are not willing to take the combative folks, kids. And so they're able to pick and choose. And so what happens then is those children sit in ERs while we try to figure out alternatives in the community. And sometimes there just aren't any. And so the state of Michigan has said that they have a plan and that by 2025, they'll have maybe around 100 beds open, which should help. But it's, in my opinion, still not enough. So. Any other questions?
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
You mentioned a big behavioral health home and opioid health home. What are
Yes.
those?
Yeah, so it's not a location, first off. They are a service if you have an opioid addiction or you have a behavioral health issue. It doesn't have to be as severe or persistent mental illness, which is our bailiwick. We also do folks that are having, troubles and, mild to moderate mental illness. But it's a nurse coordinator and a peer support specialist, someone who has lived experience to help guide them through the system and to help coordinate with their primary care physician so that doctor, instead of coming into our service, we'll work with them and their primary care physician to prescribe antidepressants or something along those lines. Try to work with the community as opposed to bringing folks in. I frankly don't want people in my service unless they absolutely need it. I want to try to have folks in the community as much as possible. We put a lot of horsepower into prevention. And as I spoke here before, this is a prevention type program, as well as trying to move folks out of our service and into the community. So we have room for folks who are coming in crisis on the other end. We want to make sure there's a continual flow. And that's why we also, as you may know, have prevention programs in all the schools. And now we're into the middle school level. In both counties. And so that keeps folks from coming in and we try to divert there. And even with that, we're still seeing 1,700 people a year. Well over 2,000 have come through in 22 on crisis combined.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
Anybody else?
figured one other thing.
Sure.
The health department has school nurses in there. Are they relaying this information on to you if there's issues?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we collaborate. We talk about who's going where all the time. You got that school, we got this school, what's going on. Yeah. Yep.
Coordinated effort.
Yes, and we are trying to, the school, Benzie County Central has been fairly distracted with the building and a lot of stuff, but we are still communicating when they're ready to pop on who's going where. We're one of the few CMHs that I'm aware of that actually receive what's called N31 money. It's school behavioral health money. They pay us. And so we just signed a contract, Benzie Central, to put a master's level therapist into their system, middle school up.
Anybody else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. I'd like to hear from Benzie Leon Health Department, Dan Thurl. Morning.
Everybody have a copy of our report? No? I've got copies here.
You need one?
No, I got it. Okay. Oh, hey. Just.
There we go, one of these somewhere.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So today I'm talking about the Benzie Leon District Health Department 2022 annual report. My name is Dan Thurl. I'm the health officer for the health department. And I'm here, to present that report to you today. Really, the theme of the report is to reintroduce the community to all the life-changing programs of the health department. And this is after, a couple of years of a pretty intense emergency response with COVID. 2022 is really a year of transition for Benzie Leon. We basically went from emergency response to more of a disease management aspect with COVID, and that trend has continued, throughout 2023, thankfully. Those 2 years were pretty, like I said, pretty intense, and our staff were really exhausted after that. And it was really a time of demobilization and kind of reflecting inward and in determining, what we needed to do to bring these important public health programs back up to the forefront for the community, and to take a breath, really, and focus on those core health programs. So during COVID, we saw the number of clients seeking services drop, for good reason. And but we're starting to turn that around, and we started that in 2022 through the hard work and dedication of our staff, that we're really getting out there and increasing outreach and awareness and education about what we do at the health department. And those numbers have increased and are continuing the trend upward there. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about some highlights in our personal health division. The Women, Infants, and Children WIC program has the distinction of having the highest percentage of babies breastfeeding at 2 months of age in the state, which is 67.5%, which is really a high honor. We also were third in the state for babies at 6 months at 36.4%. So we're really proud of that. And that is really a testament of the expertise and supportive nature of our staff in the personal health program. Another highlight is the school wellness program. In September of 2022, the Husky Health and Wellness Center opened its doors, serving students at Benzie Central and Crystal Lake Elementary. And that was with a full-time nurse and mental health provider. During its first year, we served 130 individual students through a total of 426 visits. So I think that's really extraordinary, and really a nice program to have with helping the issues in our schools and getting that the care that's needed. I think, Chip was talking about the mental health issues, and that's a big partnership there. The integration he was talking about, I totally appreciate that. And we are always working together with Central Wellness on those type of things. One other highlight is in partnership with Harm Reduction. We did place a Narcan distribution box at the entrance of the Benzie County Resource Center. These boxes allow 24/7 access to pick up free Narcan kits to reverse overdose effects and save lives. Obviously, there's a lot of work to do upstream to prevent opioid use in general. But the important thing here is that this is safe and effective medication that can save lives and does save lives. So from 2022 to present, 240 Narcan kits have been dispersed, or dispensed, I should say. And, some of the data that we have, we know that 22 or 27 overdoses have been reversed since that time, in this area. So, just moving on to some highlights from our environmental health program. After a few years, the digitization project, it's a big word, project was, completed, with our environmental health records, mainly septic and well permits and, evaluations. And so, another important aspect of that is all Benzie County property records are now accessible through an online portal, which is huge. So essentially, this helps, residents, property owners, and the business community alike, realtors, septic pumpers, contractors can, sit at their desk, have a cup of coffee in the morning and pull up the records and plan for their day, or, plan what they're going to be doing. It's really an extraordinary accomplishment. And, in addition, we are now able to, the public are now able to apply and pay for permits and evaluations, as well as temporary food licenses online too, which is really a great service as well. So in recognition of his efforts, Eric Johnston, who's our environmental health director, received the Government Impact Award from Laserfish. This is the company, and a lot of counties and other local governments use Laserfish for their document management solution for these digitized records. Well, they saw what Eric was doing and presented him with this award at their conference. And so I'm really proud of Eric for achieving that. He's been really a true inspiration for other health departments throughout the state, and his story on how he pulled this together. So really a great accomplishment. Grand Traverse County actually followed his lead and started using the same solution there. And then just this past Thursday, Emmett County agreed to digitize their records with the Health Department of Northwest Michigan, and we're partnering with Laserfish on that too. So yeah. So that's all good. Looking at some EH numbers for Benzie County, in 2022, overall land use numbers were down about 15%. But I need to put that in perspective because 2021 was like a record year for permits. So just to give you a snapshot of that, 2022 compared to 2020, overall permits were up 30%. So 2019 compared to 2022, they were up 20%. So, I mean, there was huge increases from 2019 to 2020. So even at that, the lower rate from 21, 22 is still a busy year, and we're continuing to see that today even. In the fall of 2022, we began the process of updating and making changes to our sanitary code. This was a very labor intensive process, which involved many hours of writing, legal review, editing, and then following the process laid out in the Michigan Public Health Code, which involved publishing the regulations so the public could look at them, setting up public hearings and publishing dates and times in local media, newspapers and whatnot, holding hearings, which we did in November in both Benzie and Leelanau County. And then after that, the Board of Health had to give the final approval, and then it went to the respective boards of commissioners. So it was a big effort, which really finished up in January of 23, but all that work took place, starting about now last year. Some of the things that, the highlights of the sanitary code changes, we're adding the time of transfer inspection to Leelanau County, and, Benzie County really has served as a gold standard in that effort for many years. Since the 1990s, Benzie County has had that program, and we have the data to know that it's actually worked. We have fantastic records, number one, because we've been doing this time of transfer program in Benzie County for so long. And we know that, what we're seeing right now in Leelanau County is we have about a 15 to 17% failure rate whenever we're doing an evaluation on a property due to a sale. And that was about the same as it was when Benzie started doing this. And then eventually over time, it went down. Now it's in Benzie like 3 to 4%. So it does work over time. Those properties through attrition and when they transfer are getting updated, and issues with the septic system and wells have drastically reduced. And like I said, Benzie is the gold standard in that respect, and that is recognized statewide. You know, a lot of the updated details with, you know, what laws were cited and things of that nature in the sanitary code were looked at and changed. And then the technical aspects of some of which I can go into, you know, greater detail if you have questions about that. But and then some of the Board of Appeals, Sanitary Board of Appeals, things were updated and changed in there as well. So it just more or less, we were able to modernize the sanitary code, which was good. Last but not least, we'll talk about the financials for a little bit. We did end the year with a surplus of about $345,000. This is really due to the COVID funding that we've received since 2020. We had, you know, this COVID funding is pretty siloed. It has to do with COVID specific activities. And one of them was COVID immunization fees, which, you know, in 2022, I mean, we were still giving quite a few vaccinations. I mean, that has kind of trended down. And in 23, we've given very, you know, few vaccinations comparatively. So those fees have gone down. So I guess what I'm saying is that in 23, we'll expect to see, we will not see a surplus like that in 23, and going into 24, you know, even less so. And it was really just due to COVID. So what are we doing with that surplus? I mean, we're looking at the staffing grid. We've been very lean in certain programs, especially environmental health. We have one food sanitarian that does all the restaurants between Benzie and Leelanau with no backup. So we're, you know, and then taking on the inspection program in Leelanau County, which has been very busy. So we're looking at staffing and what we can do to make it better and more responsive, and just, you know, keeping in mind that, you know, we want to keep staff, we want to retain staff as well. So another thing is investing in buildings. We know we need to do some improvements, so that frees up some flexibility for doing that. One thing I want to say is that we are very appreciative of your continued support through local appropriations. Even though local dollars are a small part of our budget, overall budget, about 11%. They are very important. They're flexible, so they're used to support multiple agency programs. They can be used for matching dollars for a grant. And most importantly, they can be used for Medicaid match, which basically for about every dollar that we use for Medicaid match of local dollars, we can expect to receive back just over $2. So it's a really a good use of those local dollars to bring back into the community. 61% of local appropriations are matched. So as you can see, that's really good. Looking ahead, we anticipate that local appropriation requests will remain flat. You know, obviously, we understand, you know, also, you know, the challenges, economic challenges that everybody faces and uncertainty. And, you know, we definitely want to be a partner in that with our counties. And we are, just cognizant of the financial impacts that everybody's facing right now with increase in inflation and wages and everything else. So with that said, that's all I have for the report. So does anybody have any questions?
Questions for Mr. Thorold?
Will this report be put online? If we tell folks they can refer to the county site to see it?
Yeah, I can.
On our website, but I think.
On yours?
I'll link to it.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
can link to it. Yeah.
awesome. Thank you.
Anybody else?
You know, it's a year behind too, correct?
how that works.
But that's how it works out.
Yep.
My question is, and probably asked this before. We hired a lot of extra people during COVID. And that was because of the extra money. That dropped.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, it has. I mean, you know, as you recall, we had a large response that took a lot of effort. We had a lot of temporary staff because we put together vaccination clinics that we had to staff and keep that going, and plus testing and everything else that went along with the COVID response. Those, I believe, we are pretty much down to a very minimal amount, which we do still have some what's called HRA funding through the state. Because we still, I mean, even though COVID is very much much lower than what we were dealing with in the past, we still deal with it a little bit. And so we still do have some of those funds coming in. Like I said, I think going into the future, you know, those should continue to drop and go down, and, you know, we'll adjust staffing as needed, but.
All with other. Agreed.
Right.
We're gonna have a pretty stable staff here.
Oh, yeah, I think we're very close to that amount, but if you know, in looking at it, which, you know, I know you've heard this before, you and Rhonda, but you know, if you look back when we, you know, say 1996, when we started, we were around 25 full-time, you know, staff members, and now we're about 52-ish, somewhere in there. So, you know, basically in that amount of time, you know, we've grown, the counties have grown, and we have basically twice as many staff. Yeah.
Anybody else?
I have one last question. So at many of our past meetings, the conversation in environmental health has been about the legislation that would mandate septic evaluations every 5 years, and what a problem that would be for our rural area. Is that still the case? Is that something that we're still concerned about? And
Yes, that is still the case. Right
I
now,
was
I mean,
wondering if you could touch on the burden it would place on our community.
sure.
And especially that department.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, basically, the Michigan Association of Local Public Health and the environmental health directors throughout the state. You know, first of all, I want to say that, you know, this would be a unified statewide code, which would has some really good aspects of it. It sets minimum program requirements, minimum qualifications. It you know, sets up some minimum standards instead of having fragmented, you know, across the 45 health departments, everybody having their own sanitary code. That part is good. Okay. And we're also not, you know, opposed to a financial or an inspection part of a statewide code. It's just the 5-year frequency. If you look at how many permits we have and what it would take staffing wise to accomplish that, we would basically have to at least triple our environmental health staff that are in that program, land use program, which would have to happen across the state, right? For every single health department, which right now, and I hear from, you know, my colleagues, you know, across the state, whenever anybody's trying to find a sanitarian, I mean, we just went through this, we get 1, maybe 2 applications, you know, I mean, there's not, it's not easy to find staff in those areas. I mean, everybody's dealing with that in many sectors. So, yeah, that is really the aspect that we have issues with. I think there's, you know, inspection programs based on triggers seems to make more sense, like a time of transfer, there's money on the table, people expect it. You know, those type of things, or if there's like a, you know, one aspect of that, which is in there is when a building permit is applied for, to put an addition on a home or add bedrooms, that would trigger it as well. Seems completely reasonable to do that, but an across the board blanket, you know, inspection every 5 years would be logistically very tough to deal with. Plus, there's not really any, in the current bills, there's not really any method of paying for that, you know, so. I'm
Appreciate
probably
it.
long-winded on this,
No,
but
thank
you
you.
know, I
It's
think
important
about it
to-
often, so.
Yeah.
And I've, talked to Representative Kofi about it, so.
Oh, she's in the room? Oh,
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan, I have one question just for clarity on this.
Yeah.
Am I understanding that you are helping to identify and influence how the law is written through the health department? Do you give input for that?
Are you talking about the statewide sanitary
the-
code bills? Yeah.
For the septic?
We do, so our association for health departments, the Michigan Association of Local Public Health, they are trying to, influence through getting comments from all the various health departments and meetings and whatnot, and talking to the bill sponsors. So through them, and then through what's called MALEHA, the Michigan Association of Local Environmental Health Administrators, which are the environmental health directors, doing the same thing. And then just from individual health departments talking to their local representatives through the process, just, trying to get that message and information to them. I've also, there's a local group called For Love of Water Flow,
Yes.
and they are very involved in this process because I should say that, Michigan, lots of times it's pointed out, is the only state in the country that does not have a unified septic system code. And like I said, again, we are not opposed to that at all. It's just this particular, frequency of 5 years for inspections, just trying to pull that off is just would be extremely difficult. And I fear that that could be the reason this would basically cause these bills to fail. Right. Just totally solely based on that. So.
Okay, that's what I was hearing, that the law itself, it sounds like the purpose is good and ethical and genuine,
Right.
but the law needs to be adjusted or rewritten,
The bills.
the
Right.
bills.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And, and again, these are it's very well intentioned. I mean,
Okay,
to say that we're going to look at, I mean, not everybody here wants us to have clean drinking water and surface water, no doubt. It's very well intentioned. It's just, that particular aspect, just the logistics of trying to pull it off, staff it and actually do it. And then I think we could also see in rural parts of Michigan, a lot of, property rights issues coming up. And honestly, I would fear for some of my staff going into, some of these areas and, where somebody doesn't want the
Right.
government there, saying you have to do this, every 5 years. So,
And-
yeah.
there's that concern as well.
And
So,
just to be clear, for people who are just hearing this for the first time, this legislation, we do have mechanisms in place that trigger point of sale inspections in Benzie and Leelanau counties right now, and those would go away. And this would require an inspection every 5 years,
Yes.
paid for by the homeowner. Whether you live on a sandy hill and have no drainage issues or septic issues whatsoever, it would be mandatory, right?
correct.
Okay,
Yeah, and part of that is your tank would have to be pumped out too. That's a mandatory requirement as well.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, sir.
I have a question. Now, this concerns all of government. Is there anywhere within Michigan government or American government, is there any talk of holding China responsible for adding these trillions of dollars to the American taxpayers' debt? Anybody?
Well, that's a little bit beyond my pay grade, but
Anybody? Anybody know of anybody trying to hold China responsible for this COVID pandemic?
No comment.
Yeah, I guess, ask Joe. Somebody get Joe out of the basement. He's got a lot of Chinese money, don't he?
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
okay, thank you very much.
At this time, I'd like to welcome Representative Betsy Cofia, representing the 103rd District for the state of Michigan. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Yeah, that was the idea, not throwing them on. Thank you. Good morning to the Benzie County Board of Commissioners. I've been looking forward to a chance to come and chat with you today, and I'm texting with Commissioner Janot. And I miss him, but he says he's watching. So hi, Art. So as chairman, thank you, Chairman Roloffs. I am Representative Betsy Cofia. I represent the 103rd District, which is a portion of Benzie County, along with my friend and colleague, Representative John Roth, who represents the rest of Benzie County since the redistricting. So I thought it was appropriate after, I was elected in November to, kind of come in and report on the first quarter or so of the work that we have done. And I will try not to go too in depth, but I wanted to give you some high level. And I will try to speak. I will just start with the septic code since we were already talking about that. Thank you, Commissioner Nye, for bringing that up. That is something I'm very sensitive to as somebody who represents a predominantly rural district and grew up in Kalkaska County. So I definitely understand sort of rural and the challenges when legislation is crafted. My colleague, Representative Skaggs, is the sponsor for this bill, and he's a former local elected official, but from Grand Rapids. So the difference between, let's say, Rapid City, where I grew up, and Grand Rapids, things can look a little different in terms of how to execute state laws that get passed. So Mr. Thorell and I have already spoken about this, and I've spoken to several folks from local health departments and local government, but what I'm encouraging is to engage directly with the bill sponsor's office, as well as sending any letters and feedback to my office using the information on my business card, because early on in the bill shaping process is a good time to get some of those key considerations. As was mentioned, we are the last of 50 states to actually implement a statewide septic code. So it is, I think, a good concept, but the devil's in the details in terms of how to execute. And I feel especially Benzie County, with being the gold standard and having a long-standing effective septic code process, your feedback would be really helpful to the bill sponsor. And I was texting with him after Mr. Thorell and I spoke the other day, and he does welcome that feedback. He's aware of the need for appropriation for sanitarians, and he is working on that. And as well as what does it actually look like for perhaps lower income households who might be required to do something like this, and the expense that would cause to them. So those are just really good pieces of feedback that I would urge and encourage folks to reach out to Representative Skaggs' office and send a letter to my office as well, and we will sort of forward along and nudge it. I think it's really helpful for me to be able to point to there's, counties from my district giving feedback on this piece of legislation. So just to kind of go over some of the highlights, I definitely want to say a thank you to each of you for your service as local county commissioners and staff of administrators. The work that you do on the ground, I especially appreciate, because I sat sort of in your chair as a county commissioner myself for 2 terms. I think that's how I met Chair Roloffs at a MAC conference, but served in Grand Traverse County for 2 terms. And I always think of local gov as really the rubber hits the road. Lansing can feel like a really long way away sometimes, in more than just miles. And so I just want to extend my gratitude to you for your service, and also a hand of partnership that I really do see my job is to be a listening partner to try to inform things like the statewide septic code concept, and try to make sure that hopefully the final product is something that truly serves the needs of our local communities. So I know about some of the budget wins, but I will go over those. But I do want to start with something I'm exceptionally proud of, a policy win that also ties into the budget. And it was my first standalone policy bill that I introduced, I want to say back in March. And it directly impacts the citizens and especially families in our schools in Benzie County, as well as throughout rural Michigan. Kalkaska County, where I grew up, it impacts all of rural Michigan. And it has to do with our school busing. All public schools in northern Michigan look different than a public school in an urban area. We, as you probably are well aware, our kids are being driven, very long distances to get just before they even get into the classroom. The Benzie Record Patriot had a statement that I actually used on my House floor speech about my bill. That the Benzie Central Huskies students get driven the equivalent of Northern Michigan to San Francisco in a single day, with the number of miles our buses drive. And for my entire childhood and adult life, there has been an inequity in the way our state funds transportation in Michigan. There was no additional funding put towards our local school districts to help pay for all of that wear and tear, all of that gas going into the tank. And what that has meant is that's money for rural kids. That money is not going into the classroom. That money is not going towards mental health FTEs. It's not going towards field trips. It's not going towards college prep classes. And my belief and my conviction is that every child in Michigan deserves its state to invest in it, no matter your zip code. So I drew up with a lot of help, I drew up a policy priority that would build into the state budget, the school aid fund budget, an equity formula of a per pupil per mile compensation for our local school districts. And we were able to get that into the House budget, and I engaged quite a bit with the House Appropriations School Aid Fund Chair, who is a former teacher, as well as the Senate. And budget, it's an $80-some billion budget. It's a huge budget. So there was a lot of moving parts, as you might imagine. But I'm incredibly proud that we were actually able to get a new funding equity formula into the school aid fund budget so that we have those additional dollars coming back to our school district. So the money that's going into the gas tank can go back into the classroom and invest in children in Benzie County, in Grand Traverse County, in Leelanau County, and throughout rural Michigan. So that was a big win that I'm very proud of for the first 6 months. And it does directly impact Benzie students. So I wanted to make sure you knew about it, even though that's obviously not directly your purview. But I bet you got kids and grandkids in the schools. So another piece, and mostly around budget, my office sent a letter to affirm the communications tower. I was thinking about what Chip said about being in the middle of the woods, in the middle of the night, on an emergency call. Our first responders go into danger every day. And when Commissioner Janot and I met earlier this year, he comes to my coffee hours over in Lake Ann. He brought this up as a priority, that there were gaps in the communications, emergency communications for Benzie, and that there was a specific budget request that I asked if I could pass that along. And it was pointed out in the paperwork and communications that the county administrator sent along that this also not only serves Benzie County, but also the DNR, right, the Coast Guard, Michigan State Police. So it would really be helpful to state agencies and even federal agencies as well. So we were successful in receiving that funding, and the local match that you all were prepared to put forward will now go back to your coffers to go hopefully for other purposes. So really excited about that. 2 other budget wins that I was able to request and receive were around housing and childcare. And I specifically was focusing on very practical, nuts and bolts. What are some of the basic needs that I keep hearing about from constituents when we knock doors? And that I knew about as a county commissioner. And housing and childcare have come up repeatedly. A shortage of childcare providers, a shortage of slots, cost associated for families, and that was directly impacting and does directly impact our businesses' ability to attract and retain talent, and then housing attainability and affordability. So we had a request for childcare funding out of the Early Childhood Commission. I need more coffee. And they had asked for a certain amount of money to help with tuition costs as well as startup costs, because it's starting a business and there are significant costs and hurdles to start up a childcare. And I counter offered and said, you can extend and make sure that the childcare tuition assistance and startup costs would extend to our whole district for Grand Traverse and Benzie County families and childcares, as well as Leelanau, then I can see if I can get you some more money. And they agreed to that. So we were able to get $800,000 for that purpose. And I'm happy to talk offline and connect you all if anyone has further interest in connecting with the Lumina Early Childhood Commission on how those funds could be accessed for the Benzie County community. And then Housing Wealth requested $300,000 for technical support for staff with the training and expertise, and perhaps you're already familiar with their Housing Ready program. But again, recognizing that a lot of more rural jurisdictions don't have full-time staff with the expertise and training and background to access state and federal money, grants, as well as look at things like zoning changes. There are a lot of rules and regulations to work through. So we were able to get those $300,000 for additional Housing Ready staff who will be available and assigned to Benzie and Grand Traverse County as well. So those are a couple of early ones that I'm very excited about. Other things I want to mention, do you have a representative on a brownfield redevelopment board for your county? Anyone on brownfield? Okay, great. So as a county commissioner, something that we were trying to figure out in Grand Traverse County was ways to address attainable housing. And we identified that the brownfield funding would be a great candidate for that, except that state law prevented it. It was not permitted to do housing with brownfield funds. So we were actually able to change state law. It has been signed into law, and we expanded the brownfield statute so that housing is specifically named as one of the uses for brownfield funding. I understand that the things that I've named to assist with housing are not the magic wand. They do not fix the problem. But my orientation, again, coming from local government, is how do we put more tools on the table for local communities to figure out and use those tools in a way that makes sense to them. So those are a couple of quick pieces. I mentioned housing, the brownfield. I will briefly mention, as you're probably hearing, there's a significant amount of infrastructure dollars at the federal level based on the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. So billions will be dollars that should be made available. Some of it's through competitive processes. And I can certainly say Representative Roth, as my counterpart representing the rest of Benzie, we want to make sure that if those funds are available, we're drawing them down to make them available to build out infrastructure as needed in our region, including Benzie County. So Rep. Roth is the chair of the Northern House Caucus, and he and I talk regularly, and I had asked him if we could have a caucus session specifically with someone from the feds to explain to us how this process is going to work and how we can then bring that information to you all and be partners and try to bring additional infrastructure funding. If the feds are giving it out, I think we should make sure that it comes to our districts. So I'm looking forward to that caucus meeting. Finally, I just want to name some in-district engagement and invite each of you. You all have my card. Please reach out at any time, but it's really important to me. Lansing is a weird bubble. Any state capital becomes its own sort of strange entity, and it can get a little disconnected at times from the reality on the ground. So it's really important to me to be accessible and available to the district. And ways that I do that are 3 coffee hours a month. The second Monday of each month. I started them in February. We've done 21 of them so far. And the one in Benzie County is at the Red Bear in Lake Ann. It's at 1 p.m. Everyone's welcome. I always appreciate the folks who come out each month. Commissioner Janot has often been there, and I've appreciated that. So we're doing legislative door knocks. We're not asking anyone for their vote, but doing a community survey to try to get a feel for what's on folks' minds. We've done a couple thousand doors so far this summer, and there's also an online survey that is on my website, which is listed there on the card. So I encourage folks to take the survey. Those are the main ways that I'm really trying to stay connected. I also got to do a ride along with Meals on Wheels for the Benzie Senior Services. About a month ago, we did Lake Ann and Platte and a little bit of the surrounding. Really an amazing program, and just applaud all the great work you folks are doing here. So with that, I am happy to yield and take some questions. I'm sorry, this was sort of a lot rapid fire, but a lot going on in the first 6 months, 7 months, and I'm heading back. We've been in district work period for July and August after we finish the budget, but we begin session again in September. So right after Labor Day, I will be down there during the week. I'm available on weekends and a little bit on Mondays and Fridays if folks would like to meet. So with that, that's just sort of a quick and dirty, but I'm happy to open up to any questions folks may have.
I want to start out by just a comment maybe, and your thoughts. Back to the septic code, the whole state is not the same, and if this law is affecting poor soil areas the same way it is good soil areas, Benzie County as a whole has pretty good ground, very good drainage. Compared to some of the other places, areas down south and up north, 5 years isn't enough for them, and it's too much for us, I think. And the cost of getting rid of sewage these days, it's exceeding $400 to have a tank pumped right now. It's cumbersome, number one, and the tanks in good soils honestly don't need to be pumped that often. And with poor soils, they do need to be. So, you know, where's the fine line, or is there any possibility of change being isolated as pinpoint? You know, this one's okay, this one's not, and rather than throw us all into the same bucket.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think I would circle back to my comments at the beginning, which is I think it's incredibly important actually that we in more rural districts, and you all particularly because you have a system that's already working so well, I think that the feedback and the kinds of questions that you are asking to the bill sponsor are very important. And I am committed to continuing to engage in conversation with him, just as I did after Mr. Thorell and I spoke. He came to my coffee hour, I think it was, texted Representative Skaggs. I think now is the time to be asking those questions. This is not a fully baked policy. It's still being workshopped. The professional associations representing health departments that Mr. Thorell mentioned are bringing up those points. But I believe that we in Northern Michigan shouldn't be shy about engaging with bill sponsors, whether it's a formal letter from the health department, a formal letter from the commission, bringing up some of these questions and certainly standing on the fact that you already have a system that is working well and have some insight that will be helpful. So I'm committed to continuing to engage the bill sponsor, and I would invite this board to consider joining me.
Thank you.
You piqued my interest when you said the early childhood care money, 800,000, am I correct?
That's great.
I understand because Leelanau has the system, even though the health department, our health department helps administer that. Just curious how Benzie County can access some of that.
Sure. So this is the Leelanau Early Childhood Commission made an application for the funding, and it's specifically targeted to things like tuition assistance for families that would qualify, as well as where there are new childcares looking to start up, helping defray some of the startup costs. They've done this in several places, again, limited to Leelanau County because that is where they are located. So I would welcome your board to reach out to me afterward, and I'm happy to put you in direct contact with the lead person from it's a former county commissioner, Patricia Sudas Little, from the Leelanau Early Childhood Commission. Yeah, and she's just a dynamo and has done some incredible work. But I will put you folks in touch with her on specifics. In fairness to her, the money has not been released. The budget goes into effect in October, and I'm assisting all of the recipients of this money with the process of actually accessing it through the state department's processes. This is one-time ARPA money. But all of that to say that I'm happy to put you in touch and help get more specifics.
I guess maybe I'm equating the wrong thing because they had a millage up there for early
Right.
childhood care.
This is separate.
That is,
It's the same group. It's the Leelanau Early Childhood Commission, but they have endeavored on a project to help families with tuition assistance to take their children to daycare or to help start up new daycares because we have such a shortage of daycare facilities. So think about like to help a startup business. It's bringing funding in specifically to help with that. To try to address that
nice
challenge.
concept. It's just,
Yes.
how did we get to it?
Devil in the details, and I'm happy to connect you with Ms. Sudas Little on that.
Yeah.
questions?
Before you leave, I just want to publicly thank you for your bipartisan effort with Senator Bumstead for the safety tower. The benefit is going to go to our safety providers, our first responders is huge, and just the bipartisan effort, so appreciate it. And I
I
will
think
be
that's the
reaching out to
job.
talk about some issues in my district
For sure.
outside of this meeting, but just a public thank you.
Absolutely. It is my pleasure. I really do believe, and I say this often, I said it in county government as well. Yes, there's partisan stuff. It's sort of part of the American political system, take it or leave it. But there's so much about what we do on a daily basis. The things I'm hearing from your constituents, my constituents, mental health access, healthcare access, the opioid crisis, roads, schools, jobs, childcare, housing. Those don't have a color to them. They're real people issues. And as long as we stay focused on that and we can have our agree to disagree things, we can get a lot of good work done. So thank you for that, Commissioner Nye, and I'm very committed to continuing with that approach. Thank you.
Nice. Anybody else?
Yeah, I got a couple things for you, if that's okay. Where is your coffee hour at in Lake?
So my coffee hour is at the Red Door Cafe. They very kindly let us tuck away in the back room.
It's on the third Thursday.
It's on, nope, not even close. Second Monday of the month. And it is listed on the website that's listed on my business card. But yes, we would welcome you to come on by. It's a nice way to just gather with the community, and I always try to buy something. They've got a really cute little shop there too.
And the next question is, regards, one size doesn't fit all. A lot things that happen down in Detroit, Lansing, Grand Rapids does not meet the rural environment. When you're down on Lansing, you guys ever talk about rural exemption on bills and processes?
You mean so state laws should just simply not apply to rural Michigan?
Well, not necessarily not apply, but may have deviations from it.
Sure. That's a fair question. And I guess I will refer back to the rail transportation piece, because to me, that was a miss of decades by state government when they were funding schools. They were really frankly completely missing the fact that, some of my colleagues, in fact, the school aid appropriations chairs, both work in districts where they barely need busing at all, because it's such a densely packed district, the kids can walk to school. And so missing the fact that Benzie has, a couple hundred square miles, Kalkaska County, where I grew up, 400+ square miles, and it's been such an inequity that when I was in high school, Kalkaska County with low property values and all sorts of things like that, literally ran out of money for their school district, closed months early, and then wanted to crunch the numbers and make it work to open in the fall, they cut busing, which meant that those families had to drive that 400 square mile district to get their children to school. So those are the kinds of things where it's so important to have a diversity of voices at the table. Myself and Representative Jen here from up in UP are the two sort of northern members of our caucus, our party caucus. And we always say we need big shoulders because we're carrying that message of what we know about our districts and our regions. It's not different, it's not better or worse than another part of the state, it's just different. So all I can say to you, Commissioner Markey, is that for me, I'm always looking at any policy that's coming down the pike at me and asking the question, what does this look like in Grant Township, in Grand Traverse County with a couple hundred people? The 90s of voting is a great example. How the heck, that's the voter's decision, and that's great, but I'm engaging with the Secretary of State's office to say, how is this actually going to play out when you have rural jurisdictions with a few hundred voters if they're supposed to staff out 9 days of early voting? Is the funding there? Are the rules there? Are they flexible to allow for these clerks to meet what the voters decided in a way that actually works and assures free and fair elections? So all I can say is I'm always mindful of that, partly because I grew up in a community of less than, I think, 1,000 to 1,500 people in Michigan. And I think that's a set of experiences that lends an important perspective.
Well, thank you, and keep up the work and looking out for us. I appreciate it.
It's on it. Thank you very much. Any other?
Excuse me, anybody else?
Just a question about, again, like Gary said about the childcare, the 800,000, you said it was for centers. Would that also be accessible for home care or licensed home care providers?
It's for childcare, daycares, so it can be home or center based, and there's this new, former Commissioner, Sue DeSoto has been working on this concept of micro centers that sort of blends the idea of home and center based. And it would apply to any and all daycare providers. They're still punching out all the specifics now that they know if they're gonna receive that amount of funding, but I'm happy to put you in touch with her on
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, the idea was flexible funds to meet needs that across the district.
Thank you.
Their
All
question.
set? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I do apologize. I won't be able to stay for the entirety of the meeting, but please, you got my number. Please keep in touch.
Sure will. Thank you.
Thank you.
That being said, it's 10:15. We're gonna take just a short break. And we'll be back in the session.
You're unmuted.
All right.
Sorry.
We're back in session, folks. So we'll continue with, if there's any more department heads, elected officials like to speak. Nope. Action items, item A.
So the first action item you'll see before you is the co-location agreement with Merit. As you recall, a year ago, we talked about this agreement again, and we had asked for an increase in the rent that they provide us for the space that they use in our server room here in the governmental center to house their equipment to provide internet service. They need more space as well as an additional electricity to run the equipment. And so we negotiated an increase in the rent that they're paying to Benzie County to do that. So what you have in front of you is an amended agreement that shows the increase in the rents. It close to doubles what they were paying. I approached them with like a net zero because we pay them for internet service. And so I approached them with a net zero. We couldn't get to that. So with the agreement in front of you, we're paying about $2,000 a year for internet for the campus. So not bad. So Merit's been good to us. We're good to them. It's a great relationship. So we don't see any issues continuing this relationship.
I'll make the motion that the amended co-location agreement between Merit Network, Inc. and Benzie County for lease of space for fiber equipment and network access points for a 5-year period be approved, with Merit to pay Benzie County for the leased space according to the schedule outlined in the communications from the county administrator dated August 17th, 2023, and that the board chair be authorized to sign such agreement with one automatic 5-year renewal allowed as defined in the terms of Schedule 1 exhibit. Man, that's a long motion.
Gotta catch all the.
Thanks, Kim. Oh, second.
So this is gonna create a 10-year contract?
No, but well, yes, an
Yes.
automatic 10 years, yes, but it'll be mutual writing at the 5 years. So it'll come to me. They can't just automatically extend. They'll say to me, hey, we're looking to extend, and I can say, yeah, nope, or okay. So. It's the same time frame as you approved before. The difference now is the increase in rent that they're paying us, and because we're a year into the other one, so it extends it that one additional year.
Are you concerned at all that the additional 5-year would warrant another increase?
There's opportunity for that.
Is there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You already added it in anyway.
Yeah. So if you actually look at the table in my memo, there's the opportunity to continue to increase for that additional 5 years. However, there is further opportunity that if we get to the end of the 5-year and we're like, this 2% increase just isn't working, we can have those conversations.
Renegotiate.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Question was, this does not require additional space, correct? Or no?
So I'm not sure who's been in our server room. So our server room is a big open room, and there's a lot of wires on the walls, and there's racks that have a lot of equipment and wires on those racks. And so what they're utilizing is additional space on that rack that we're not using anyways. And there's a few extra wires on the wall.
They're gonna clean that up.
So yeah, they're working directly with Blue Lake Electric to actually install the additional wires and all those good things. I just have to open the door for them, and they will take care of that whole upgrade that they need for their services. They maintain all the equipment down there. Rebecca and I get emails periodically. It says, hey, we're going to be in the building. Can someone let us in the room? And so we'll let them in the room. They'll do their maintenance. We don't do anything with it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Roll call, please.
Did someone second that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Evan did.
Nye,
Yes.
Rolla,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Rorsaki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item B, consider approving the accretion of 3 positions into the POM corrections.
So as you're all aware, the FOPLC general unit disband, the collective bargaining unit disband. There are 3 positions from that prior unit that would like to be part of the POAM corrections unit. I say 3 positions, but it is 4 individuals who work for the county. What this means is it's not that they're getting all the corrections benefits, because corrections have different schedules and different benefits due to the nature of their positions. What this would do is create 2 units within one. So there'll be one collective bargaining agreement, but it will spell out 2 different sets of benefits within that unit. I did have concerns with that. It seems muddy, but it's my understanding from our legal counsel that this is a common theme among local governments where they have 2 units within one with 2 different sets of benefits. And at the advisement of our legal counsel, we should be doing this. We could say no, but if we say no, MERT, which is the state agency that handles all of this, they could say, well, you are going to do it and we're going to do it on our terms, not yours. So by us accepting it, we can kind of set the terms as to how we want to see this happen. Whereas if we do say no, we are in jeopardy of having to do it on their terms. And that could be not beneficial to Benzie County. So that's why accepting it now on our terms is a much better avenue to move forward with. So they will be accreted into that group. It's a weird word, accreted into that group. They will maintain the benefits that they had within the general collective bargaining agreement, which is the benefits we're allowing to continue. And then next year, when we start union negotiations, we will negotiate with the group and it'll end up being 2 sets of benefits that will be part of that new contract next year when we do negotiations. And so those 3 positions, it's the maintenance coordinator position, which, you know, there's 2 individuals serving in that role. It's the detective secretary position and the jail secretary position.
And did the POM body agree to this?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Mhm.
They will not have binding arbitration agreement. right?
Absolutely not. So corrections will be, most likely will end up with binding arbitration like the road deputies. These 3 positions absolutely will not qualify for that binding arbitration because that's specific to corrections. These individuals are not corrections officers.
Right.
So that'll be spelled out in the agreement as well. It's also spelled out in the secretion document that those positions will not be subject to binding arbitration like corrections if and when the corrections do receive that benefit.
So the conversation we had around budget time about doing a salary assessment for non-union folks, it will pull these folks out of that consideration.
It absolutely will. We'll start with those non-union folks for those evaluations of the job descriptions and potential increases in wages. These will be union positions, so they won't be part of that non-union review, which will start first. It would be down the road. Mhm.
I'll make the motion that the Board of Commissioners approves. Well, you're gonna say that word again.
Accretion.
Yeah, accretion of the jail secretary, detective secretary, and maintenance coordinator positions into the Police Officers Association of Michigan Corrections Unit and authorizes the chair to sign.
A second.
Really.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Roa,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
motion carries.
Move on to item C, consider approving services agreement extension with Benzie Senior Resources.
As you all know, we have an agreement with Benzie Senior Resources to carry out those senior services for our community. Their contract is on a 3-year expiration calendar. And so that end of 3 years is approaching rather quickly, September 30th. So this motion before you would extend that contract by an additional 3 years. We did just look over that contract when we approved it the last time. And as you'll recall, we made some adjustments to how we're paying Benzie Senior Resources. So it is a fairly fresh contract. So I don't foresee any changes. Neither did Doug. When we talked about it, we both thought it was a good contract that benefited both. And so what I'm asking today is simply approve that contract for an additional 3 years.
Well, Benzie Senior Resources does a fantastic job. So I'll make the motion that the Board of Commissioners approves a 3-year extension to the services agreement with Benzie Senior Resources, provide senior services to the community utilizing county millage dollars, subject to review by legal counsel, and authorizes the chair to sign.
Second on that.
There's motion and support. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Item D, consider approving bomb swatting policy.
The bomb swatting threat policy has been on the agenda and taken off before you've all seen it for a while. So it's finally ready to come before you. This is a personnel policy to add to our whole group of personnel policies. And what this does is it defines bomb threats and swatting threats, and it also provides an outline to staff as to how to respond to those threats that may come in. Swatting threats are kind of the fancy word for prank calls in a lot of ways. And so you probably recall what happened in Frankfurt not too long ago about the call, and the whole idea of it is to distract first responders to one location when potentially the threat's somewhere else. And so this policy will help staff in the response to those, how to handle those when they come into Benzie County. This is happening more and more. We're hearing about it more and more. So this, we're obviously not immune to it. It happened in Frankfurt. It could happen to us. And so we need to have this policy in place for our staff.
So I'll make a motion that the Board of Commissioners adopts the bomb swatting policy and rescinds all related policies.
I'll support. Pick the easiest one to read.
That's what I was gonna tell Tim. Tim, thanks for taking the long one. I got this one.
There's a motion and support. Is there further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved. Item E, establish an ad hoc interview committee for DHHS board.
Gaylord Jowett's position is expiring on the DHHS board. And so what I have in front of you is the establishment of an ad hoc interview committee. Our policy indicates that we'll establish an ad hoc interview committee to interview those who are interested in being reappointed and appointed to that committee. Thus far, we don't have any additional applicants other than Gaylord Jowett. So the policy does allow for you to simply reappoint Gaylord Jowett if you would like. However, establishing an ad hoc is, I believe, in the best public interest, because I know there is that board, sometimes there's additional people who want to serve on that board. So to give the public that opportunity, I think, is favorable to Benzie County. So this would establish an ad hoc interview committee to re-interview Gaylord, as well as any other applicants that may come about. We did put it back in the paper so that it's just out in the community one more time, just doing our due diligence and trying to recruit community members to serve our boards. But if nobody else comes in, the board could simply just reappoint Gaylord Jowett if they would like.
Commissioner Janat's not here, so we clearly have to put him on the board, right?
Absolutely.
I do let you know you think,
Right.
Commissioner Nye.
Just remember to be here every time.
Yes.
I hear he's listening, so,
I hope he is.
Okay, I'll make the motion recommendation, I guess. That the Board of Commissioners establish an ad hoc committee to make a recommendation for term expiring October 31 through 26 on the DHHS board, and the chair, Commissioner Janat, and myself. An administrator designee be appointed to said.
Second.
The motion and support. Is there further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved. We pulled item F. Item G, consider accepting proposal from Motorola for the emergency communications tower.
So what was provided in your packet was this pricing summary that Rebecca received from Motorola related to the construction of the emergency tower. What I also talked about in my memo is the additional cost to lay the fiber to the tower. So the proposal we received from Motorola is simply for the tower and the barn associated with that. So that part of it, Benzie County, we still need to get the fiber to that tower to run that tower. Otherwise, we have a very pretty tower with just to look at. So what is in front of you today is to approve the project in an up to amount, which includes the rough estimate we've received from Cherry Capital Communications to expand that power or of that fiber. So if it exceeds that, we'll have to come back to you. But if it does not, we're within that spending authority that you're approving. Based on the allocation from the state of Michigan, the funding from neighboring townships, as well as the funding that you have allocated as of ARPA funding, we believe that the total project is still fully funded. and Rebecca can answer specific questions regarding the project.
Do we have a site for that project yet?
Yes, Frankfurt has designated, and not the exact GPS coordinates, but we'll be in the compound of the fire department and DPW Department Works, near 122 James Street. So that's in, the industrial part of Frankfurt, city of Frankfurt.
Very good.
So I'll make the motion that the Board of Commissioner waives the competitive bidding process and accepts the proposal from Motorola Solutions dated August 14th, 2023 for the installation of an emergency communications tower and the total project cost not to exceed $2,650,000 with funds available in the Capital Projects Fund.
Marky will
Second.
support.
Both support that.
Motion and support. Is there going to be a groundbreaking ceremony for that, or are we part of that?
Probably, we can be if that's what you want us to do. I don't have any dates. Obviously, the funding starts in October, or the availability, we'll work through that process. There's a kickstart meeting and I'll have more information available, but yes, there's certain things that the customer, which is us in that big packet, is required to do. So in addition to the fiber, there's the cutting of the trees and doing some other things to prepare for that.
Well, I think if
If you
we
want me
could,
to get you a gold plated shovel, I will.
He does.
Gold spray painted shovel.
it would be my second. I just think it's a good collaboration between us and City of Frankfurt.
I will work through that.
Thank you.
I have one question. We talked about the fiber optic getting there. Is Tim still considering the Betsy Valley Trail? I haven't yet to hear anything from him.
So there's a whole bunch of emails that I haven't read because they're going back and forth between Tim, Rebecca and I. Some this morning. So we're gonna sit down and talk about that, but I don't believe so. But we'll know more as we work through that process.
Yeah, not for my
Yeah.
thought on this project. We want the straightest line possible because that's
That's
the
the
cheapest.
cheapest.
So we're gonna go right down
I'm just
115 and
trying
jog
to
into
avoid the
James.
DNR.
Yeah.
Yes, that will make it
So-
easier for all of us to do that is to the most direct route.
Okay.
So it's very exciting. We're laying the middle mile, which is affecting then the townships on the way as well. So this is more than just a tower project. This is also expansion of broadband as well, and that's very exciting. So we're excited for that. And Cherry Capital is working with Peninsula Fiber Network, who is the primary backbone for the 911 system. So we're working with those folks to make sure everything's being done right.
Good, thank you.
There's a motion and support. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Howard,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes,
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes,
Roloff,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item H, consider approving road maintenance agreements with the road commission.
In your packet, is the request to approve 2 road maintenance agreements from our road commission. These are pretty standard agreements that you as the county authorize every couple of years. One is specific to the Betsy Valley Trail. The other one is specific to our jail access area here on the campus. And so it spells out the relationship between the road commission and us regarding the use of the equipment and what that cost and the time and those sorts of things. So it's a good cooperation that we've had going on for years. And if the road commission doesn't do it, we're contracting somebody else to do it. So why not work with our neighbors at the road commission?
Sure.
I'll make the motion that the Board of Commissioners authorizes the government center roads and the jail access road maintenance and the Betsy Valley Trail maintenance agreements and agrees to the terms with the Benzie County Road Commission expiring September 30, 2028, subject to review by legal counsel.
Second.
Motion and support. Is there further discussion? Roll call, please.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
yes,
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
yes,
Roloff,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
motion carried.
Move to item I, authorize county administrator to balance the budget.
So we're nearing that time of year once again, where the administration office works through balancing the budget for the end of the fiscal year. So I'm asking your permission to grant my office those rights to balance the budget We want everything to be at 100% of that line or less. We shouldn't have any overages. This then sets us up for success for the auditor. So it's one of those housekeeping motions you do every year at this time.
Well, I recommend that the Board of Commissioner authorizes the county administrator to make budget transfers between departments and funds to balance the 22-23 budgets for all the funds.
9 seconds.
Motion and support. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Cunningham,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item J, consider renewing the service contract with Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa Chippewa Indians for animal control services.
So on various levels, we work with the tribe and our neighbors to give each other, provide services to each other for various reasons. One of those is animal control. And so what this does is it memorializes that relationship between animal control and the tribe for animal control services, including housing of animals in our space. And so it's not a huge money-making venture, but it's one of those, keeping the relationship with our neighbors active. And so that's what this agreement is doing. It's been in place for years. And so we're simply extending that agreement.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Commissioners authorizes the professional services contract with Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians for animal control services in the total amount of $300 a quarter, expiring September 30th, 2025, subject to review by legal counsel.
Motion and support. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Here, Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Worsakki,
Yes.
Cunningham,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item K, consider approving a letter of support for Grow Benzie.
Grow Benzie, headed up by Josh Stoltz, many of you know, is applying for a grant through Rotary Charities to expand their services they provide to the community as a community development agency. And so what they're looking for is a letter of commitment to continue to support their services. We do that by having various folks serve on some of their subgroups. So what this letter does is we're committing that we support their ventures. We're not committing funding. We do this for other agencies like the Conservation District. We've done letters of support and letters of commitment for them. And so this would be very helpful in them obtaining a grant through Rotary Charities. And so I told Josh that we'd bring it forward because this is a great thing for Benzie County.
I would recommend that the Board of Commissioners authorizes a letter of commitment to Grow Benzie to support their mission as
Should
a
say rural.
rural prosperity incubator, fostering projects and initiatives in Benzie County
Communities.
communities. Okay,
I wrote it fast.
and authorizes the chair to sign.
Second.
Thank you.
Motion and support. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? So moved. We'll move to commissioner reports. I actually only had a couple meetings, Village of Lake Ann, which pretty much was business as usual. Usually there's an abundance of people at those meetings. I think there were 3 at the last meeting, so it's very casual. Not a lot going on right now. They had a busy summer, but they're winding down now, so that's about all. I have a busy couple weeks coming up, so that'll take up for the last couple of weeks. Commissioner Jeanette is not here, but you have his report. Karen, you have anything you'd like to highlight?
Just would like to highlight some congratulations. Chris Spence, who is the treasurer and the clerk for Frankfurt. She did a grant and was able to receive a little over $250,000 to help fund from the Michigan State Treasury to help fund the police division. And it was her first opportunity and success with that. So just hats off to her. The other thing for Human Services collaboration for Benzie, we have hired a Sue Campana as the Benzie Early Childhood Coordinator for 10 hours a week. It's a starting point. We're very happy to have her, and that was grant funded for 1 year. Those would be the highlights.
Any questions? Commissioner Nye?
Oh, sure. I did have my report done. I made the clerk aware that I was not going to turn it in. I do think there's a value in giving our report in a meeting. So it is going to be my practice to give my report and then turn it in after the meeting to be included in the packet. So with that said, I attended the Village of Beulah meeting. They discussed their Cintas contract. The board approved buying out the contract to remedy a very frustrating situation. They had gone years being charged for employees who were no longer there and could not seem to come to any satisfying conclusion. So they bought that contract out. There was a discussion regarding marking their parking lot to maximize parking. It could require power pole relocation, and they decided it was prudent to wait because of the possible sewer line replacement, so things could be torn up. They addressed audit deficiencies and discussed a correction active plan. They amended their budget per state requirements to be in compliance. And several entities were represented for a non-point source grant walkabout. It was an effective event, they decided, to highlight issues and concerns that the residents had in regard to the proposed efforts. I attended Benzonia Township. The board approved the transfer of a marijuana license from GLNR to OUID, which I think is pronounced weed. I think. H. Rose was approved as the new candidate addition to the fire department. And the superintendent reported that there were 216 transfers of ownership this year in the township. Central Wellness, we had a thorough overview from Chip. The only thing I would add, we had our board retreat last month, is we had a red book overview. And the red book is something that Chip, as executive director, has created. It's a compilation of court cases and historic events that tie bar into the mental health code. And it clarifies relationships of entities and really helps. Oh, there it is, the red book. Ta-da! And it's actually red. Most of them.
It's actually pretty full.
Yeah, and so it's a excellent tool for new board members. Chip takes the time to sit down with each new board member and kind of overview it. And then we have decided at that meeting that perhaps quarterly, we're going to take sections of this and really do a deep dive. It's good stuff in there. It talks about governmental immunity and who it's granted to when you have entities that you contract with. Does your governmental immunity as a community health under the mental code convey to them? And shows all the court cases, how they got there. Very valuable. I attended the Benzie School Board meeting. The bus garage plans are moving forward. The proposed square footage now is under the sprinkling requirement, which was a real budget. It allowed the budget to make this go forward. The plans include 3 bays. One is going to allow for bus washing. And the intent is to extend an RFP for its building in October with selection and approval in November. Negotiations for the sale of Crystal Lake Elementary are continuing. There was a Verizon rep at that meeting who attended to answer questions regarding a proposal to build a 300-foot high cell tower on a 100-foot by 100-foot footprint on school property. There were options for a rental contract or a flat buyout, which is significantly less than the life of the contract to rent, of course, but an option nonetheless. Homestead Hills ribbon cutting ceremony is going to be August 30th at 4:30. And the first day of school is, of course, September 5th. And then the final meeting I have here is the EDC meeting. Merit is underwriting a pilot program, creating a task force to build a framework for the digital equity piece of the Robin and Beads grants, and Benzie is participating. This exercise is going to position Benzie at the forefront of the digital equity requirement. Katie will serve on that as far as, and then a handful of other selected people who are very privy to what's going on with broadband. Tim Malone provided a written update on the Benzie Internet for All effort. This can be viewed at the EDC packet online, and he said that 785 households will be receiving postcards, making them aware that fiber will be an option very soon. The True North Convenience Store in Honor has received its permits to begin underground work, and the meeting is scheduled to establish a timeline of that project. And then the rest of that meeting, we discussed the draft community coordinator job description with that conversation to continue. That's all I have.
Questions for Rhonda? Gary?
Bus garage.
Hmm?
Got to be located out
Next to this,
big campus.
yes. Yes, so it's that
Finally getting
parcel.
The condemned building, they can,
Say that again.
we're finally getting the garage here has been condemned for years,
And they do have an offer to purchase on that.
really.
Yes, yes, they have two separate offers from two separate purchasers for the bus garage and the lot next to it, which is currently the Crystal Lake Elementary Playground. And then a separate purchaser has made an offer on the Crystal Lake Elementary, so
Where's the funding coming? Thought they were broke.
not broke. No,
They're never broke.
No.
I mean, I thought.
not enough to pay for a sprinkling system.
I'm glad they're doing it.
Yeah,
It's.
yeah, and it will have room for offices for the bus director, and it sounds like everybody who is a stakeholder in this is pleased with the forward motion and the plan.
I didn't expect to hear this, so.
The time and the open house. Or the grand opening.
For
4:30.
Homestead Hills,
4:30.
4:30 on the 30th. And we were there at the commissioners were present for the groundbreaking, so I don't know if it would be prudent for us to attend the ribbon ceremony as well.
I will be there with my kids.
Okay.
I will be there with you. So please,
So
I think it would be good.
did I hear you say you were representing the whole board by you being there?
I think almost all of you were there last time. I would
Yes, we
love for
were.
you to join again.
Yep.
A good idea.
Commissioner Markey?
Second. The Central Wellness Network Board, Red Book, wonderful. Everyone should get a copy of this. This is a great.
Great reading, right?
It is. It's a page turner, let me tell you. Truly it is. And actually, our director, Chip Johnston, is actually going out to other CMHs and teaching them about this. It has a lot of historical information in it and how the CMHs were created and how they are today by statute. And believe it or not, he fights sometimes with the department at the state level who oversees this, and they don't understand it. So it's a good reference to have. The Village of Honor Council meeting, they're looking for a new web hosting service, and also to include storage and email hosting. Their zoning administrator gave an update on the True North Shell gas station project. Been talked about already quite a bit. They're still working on a short-term rental ordinance. And their master plan draft is complete, and they're just waiting on attorney review. And the last meeting I attended was the Benzie Senior Resources, and we had a nice presentation from them today.
Questions for Tim? Commissioner Warseki?
I don't really have anything to add to my written report.
Thank you. No. Commissioner Sauer?
Okay, I got a lot to add. First of all, I hope you read my report because we were asked to contribute money to the road. I guess an extension of Henry Road, but it's not really, that they want to name Husky Trail. Road Commission, because of maintenance issues and stuff, would like to turn that over to the school to maintain. I know we granted money, the township granted money, and the road commission granted money. But they will block off the Henry Road part that they can't get through Henry Road. They're gonna keep Henry Road open. And it's just the plowing maintenance. They're looking at probably at least 15 years after they pave it. There won't be any upkeep to it. So by turning it over, that upkeep would go to them. I didn't have a problem with that, but I wanted all the commissioners to kind of think about it. give me any kind of input if there's a real issue with it. Because we did help fund it. Think it's beneficial. Still a little concerned. I'm sorry Art's not here. As that means that the school could have put money into the road, but this is where we're at. I think financially for all concerned, it's probably better to have them maintain it, plow their own road. They would be responsible for the whole thing. So any other input, let me know.
So that means the school's contractor who bids their snow plowing,
Right.
because the schools themselves don't have the capacity to plow their own stuff.
So, but they'd be responsible for the parking lot getting, or, road
Yep.
getting tore up or something. Last Thursday, I got called by, Scott on the Maples board. and
Harrison.
Harrison, and Nate Luke resigned that day. Megan Garza has been put in charge. She has been licensed, she was licensed prior to this, so everything's good. After that, we're having a meeting this week. Should know more, but I wanted to officially let everybody know. And
Megan's interim though, is my
is it interim?
understanding.
Yeah, I
Yes.
put down temporary, but
Yeah, Megan is interim, so not permanent at this point.
Right. But so they're not in a bind. It must have been the week of resignations between somebody resigned on the Village of Thompsonville's board. Melanie Cedarholm resigned from the road commission. She's the payroll clerk. They just got trained in, so Joe's got his hands full. We'll see how that goes. And we have a new clerk in Alberta. Her name's Catherine Ralston. Said she's previously served on the planning commission here for Benzie County. And they officially started their water project. And the last thing I want to bring up is I just want recognition for a couple of people. One of them is Karen Korolenko. And the Friends of the Benzie County Republican Party bought a pig and a beef down to the Manistee Fair. And they're getting it processed and they're going to give it out to the veterans that need help in the community. I think Karen's going to talk to you, Bob, if he has some additional ones. But I thought it was a great thing. We're looking at probably close to 1,000 pounds of meat.
Right.
So it'll be helpful. Inflation skyrocketed and things like this. There's enough problems as it is, but this would give these families a little more help. So just wanted the recognition, the folks that did this. It was a great thing. And Karen's gonna distribute it, so don't go up there looking for steak. But I thought it was super, so thank you.
And just to follow that up for the public, there's approximately 1,700 veterans in Benzie County. So and the veteran capacity, pretty general through all the counties, averages about 10%. So Grand Traverse has 8,000 or something like that, but so we're right around 1,700 right now. The numbers were a little higher some years ago, but with not hardly any World War II guys left anymore, and the Vietnam guys are starting to get up there. So probably sometime down the road, it may grow a little bit more just because of the time of service. But right now, we're right around that 1,700 mark. So thanks for that, Gary.
So thanks to these folks, because they also helped the 4-H kids in Manistee, so that's great too.
And recently, the Veterans Affairs Department purchased a 8x14, 7x14 tandem axle trailer. And that's going to be for housing some of the equipment that the Veterans Affairs Department has acquired over the last couple of years. Some tents and other stuff for outside venue activities. So some of that you'll see at the football game on September 8th. We're working with a local Epic Center, does graphics. So she's going to be putting a wrap on the trailer similar to what the wrap on the car looks like. So other than that, we will move on County Administrator's report.
Just a few things for me. The first thing is the 2023 annual Michigan Association of Counties Conference is approaching. It will be October 1st through the 3rd. There is an early bird rate to sign up for that conference, which expires September 8th. So if any of you would like to go to Kalamazoo this year with me, I would be happy to have you. October 1st through the 3rd. Just let me know before September 8th so we can get that early bird rate. They haven't released an agenda yet for the conference, so I'm not sure what all the trainings will be, but they're usually quite beneficial trainings to sit in through. They talk a lot about, legislative updates and what's happening in the legislature, and, there's policy procedure that's talked about, and networking is huge because there's a lot of commissioners that go to those conferences. So if you want to go, let me know and we will get you signed up. Rose is back. Yay. Our office is fully staffed again, so we're really happy to have Rose back. As Rhonda did talk about the Digital Equity Task Force, so Merritt has asked 3 counties in Michigan, Benzie being one of them, to work on a task force to develop a digital equity, digital inclusion model that can be shared around the rest of the state of Michigan. And so myself and various representatives of the community will be serving on this task force to really come up with a model for how we want to, address the digital equity issues that occur in Benzie County. Opioid Task Force, Grand Traverse County has reached out and asked if Benzie County wants to be part of a regional opioid task force as to how to spend those dollars in the region. I will probably go to a few to see how it goes. But being conscious of, we have needs here in Benzie County, so I'm not real keen on just giving money away to larger counties unless there's for sure a direct benefit to Benzie County. So I'm going to go to some of those task force meetings and see if it's something maybe we really want to be part of. But I have been invited to that task force meeting, so we'll see. I'll have more to come on that. I'm just not sure where it's going to go. I know they want to try to address regional issues and pool money, which is a great idea, but I don't want Benzie to be left in the dark as it's been in other areas. And the only other thing is open enrollment starts tomorrow. And so if you have changes to any of your benefits that you need to make, or if you need to sign up for FSA, open enrollment is important to you. If there's absolutely no changes on your behalf, you don't have to go into our portal. But if you have changes, you need to go into the portal. So you can reach out to Jackie tomorrow, 9 to 11:30 here in this building, 1 to 3:30 up in the sheriff's office. Jackie will be, if you have questions or concerns regarding your benefits with Benzie County, go ahead and reach out, but it starts tomorrow. Other than that, if you have any questions for me, we're humming along.
Questions?
Just one. Have you guys been able to contact Mercury?
So I have been going back and forth with Scott Clark, that is his name, and we're looking at hopefully a meeting next week, Wednesday or Thursday. We had planned to meet earlier, but the world blew up. And so hopefully next week is we're trying to nail down Wednesday or Thursday. Scott Clark is his name with Mercury. It does sound like they intend to expand in their awarded locations is what he's gleaning to me. But when and the timing and that, I don't know yet. I'll know when I meet. So hopefully Wednesday or Thursday, we can nail down one of those days.
Still getting a lot of calls.
I know we're getting calls as well in our office regarding broadband in general. So we're trying to address all those. Yeah.
Ready, thanks.
Hmm.
There was no study session. There are no committee appointments. Unfinished business, new business.
I did see study session minutes in there.
Pardon me?
There was minutes in there.
Yeah.
I don't think we did anything.
Do those need to be approved or just acknowledged?
Hold on.
You ran it. It just went right after our meeting last time.
Oh, we incorporated it into,
Right, but there were
The
separate
morning
minutes for it.
sessions,
So do we have to deduct your pay for not running? them?
What?
yeah.
Yeah, they had that,
It was just a study session. So,
Yeah.
okay, I don't think you have to approve them.
the action on anything.
I don't think they require any action. There's nothing.
Mm-mm. Typically, you guys approve them at the next study session. They're in
Okay.
here for review and then typically you
Yep.
guys approve
Okay.
them later.
So no new business. Correspondence for your reading enjoyment. Brings us to our final public comment.
Morning, my name is Ryan King, box 164, Benzonia. First, I'll begin. The state rep, I think, was a little disingenuous regarding school budgeting in Benzie County. It's my understanding that between Benzie Central Schools and Frankfurt, the total budgets is $25 million. So if you take that total number and divide it by the total number of students in Benzie County, how can that not be enough money? And that's because the true purpose of education in Benzie County is not focused on education and sports and extracurricular activities. It's for patronage for born and bred individuals of Benzie County that have no employable schools outside of Benzie County. So that's why we have to fabricate this need of now only 4 elementary schools for the smallest county in Michigan. I think it's asinine that the schools are not consolidated on the banks of Alberta. Because if you're a kid from white trash Thompsonville, do you really care if you're driving a bus from Thompsonville to the banks of Alberta to learn? And that's just where we're at. The reason for education is to pretend Ed Schindler can coach football players that are 160-pound linebackers that do any benefit for the University of Michigan, but instead have a 160-pound linebacker at Michigan participating in the out of formula Frankfurt is having, I guess, residual impacts on Frankfurt becoming a Section 8 ghetto. Frankfurt's school system is causing the disconnect between cost of living and wages. So it's just a suggestion that if Benzie wants to move forward, I think they should consolidate the school districts, get rid of the police department that is just as corrupt as this pig right here, that is deliberately indifferent to defamation and slander that I've been privy to since August 2007 to present, because the Benzie County Sheriff's Department participates in a racket called Benzie Justice, where degenerate attorneys from Cooley Law School, i.e. John Doherty, Sarah Swanson, and Judge Thompson, run a racket where police reports that are knowingly false are endorsed by the prosecutor's office. So I'm in a position to contact the person who allowed me to attend university school beginning in grade 6. It took me an hour and 15 minutes to get to the best school in America. He was a dean at Harvard Law School. I'm going to enjoy calling Mr. Brennan, saying, Mr. Brennan, will you please sue this white trash hick county that my family has subsidized with non-homestead property taxes since 1899 for white trash kids to participate in the least respected level of sports.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public input?
I was appreciative to hear today that Representative Kafia was able to get transportation funding for rural communities. What a breath of fresh air that is. And to hear that that has happened for decades and nobody figured it out. Rockstar.
Yeah.
No, Sam. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you do.
Hello, my name's Mike Ross. I live in Benzonia Township. And I was just noticing that item F was not mentioned on during the meeting today. I hope that that's still on the table. I think it's very important that needs to be revisited. We need funding for our infrastructure in this county, and we need to look at that. And I don't know if anybody wants to comment about whether it's still happening or if it's why it might have been ignored today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public input? We'll close public input. And look for a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
Adjourn.
Tim, support.
Sure.
Motion by Tim, supported by Karen. All those in favor, say aye.
I-
Opposed?